For those of you about earlier, you would have been aware that there were some drums and some fifes, and you'll have heard how easily those drums and fifes could be buried by cannon fire, which is why during the American Civil War bugles were used to convey messages across the battlefield, as they would convey above the sound of cannon fire, and I will try and demonstrate that later on today. Just waiting a check from our participants.
Daddy!
Shh! Anastasia! Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're good to go here, so we'll just give the Confederate commander a wave, tell him we're good to go in 2 minutes. He knows, right, okie dokie. Not again.
Yeah, we've got to stay here for the battle, okay?
So let's say in the hands of an experienced infantryman, we will go 150. Even so, still 3 times what you're expecting from muskets. Cavalry charges during the American Civil War stop happening. They just got shot to bits. There you go, good old-fashioned volley fire. This idea that you could volley an enemy. By volleying an enemy, you could destroy his unit, and hopefully that you could walk up to him and do it again, and hopefully there wasn't enough of them to fire back. This, of course, didn't work. Now, we realise that this is a lot closer. So, a first ammunition is a lovely solid shot, like an armour-piercing round. Dead good for going through the side of a boat or through somebody's fortification. Close, but no cigar. Or through somebody's fortification. Really, really handy for that kind of thing. The problem is, it's not very good against massed infantry because it just bounces straight through them. I mean, don't get me wrong, 2 unfortunate guys are going to have something heavy taking their arms and legs off, but everybody else is going to be fine. So the other round is called shell. It's a hollow round with a fuse in the back, and it's fired from the cannon. In fact, there's one in our camp, you can go see it afterwards. And the fuse is cut to be measured, tin, which is full of musket balls, which goes in the barrel and turns it into a 4-inch wide shotgun. It looks to me like the Union artillery are now getting the range on the Confederate artillery there. You can see that there are shells that have actually fallen short, landed and exploded.
No, not taking a picture of that. There you go. Look.
Here we go, old-fashioned tactics from Napoleonic. You have to imagine that these guys are a regiment which would be 50 yards apart, and that would be, of course, they're going to skirmish line though. So this is skirmish line. So skirmish line is what they used at the front of the fight, at the front of the, and it began to be more and more used as the war went on. Now as the war went on and more people used these skirmish lines, what happens is, of course, that the war begins to resemble much more a modern war. And in fact they begin to do things like use the cover, and use the terrain, far more than this old-fashioned block patterning. It still happened, don't get me wrong, but the war began to modernise. By the end of the American Civil War, of course, we would have trench warfare, we would have breech-loading rifles, we would have a ship that was sunk by a submarine, we would have landmines, we have telegraph, and we have a dress rehearsal for World War I on our hands.
Oh, is it?
No.
You got out of your bag, sorry, Ralph.
You may wonder, by the way, why modern gunpowder is called smokeless powder. Here is the reason why. Because gunpowder is very, very, very smoky. And on a still day like today, you can see the amount of smoke provided. Imagine this is a damp day. If this is a damp day, then it hangs even worse. In fact, we've had events before where we've actually had to march forward out of the smoke because you simply cannot see what's going on. The Confederacy would go on to win most of the earlier battles, and ooh, that was a good volley, wasn't it? 2-cannon volley. They would go on to win most of the early battles, and the Union would go home in disgrace, and they began to lose popularity very quickly. By the time they get to the really scruffy battle at Antietam, even though it's a Union battle, a Union win, even though it's completely a Union win, most public... Did we have a smoke ring there? Yes. Yeah, well, you can see just how much air is being pushed out of these barrels, can't you? Sorry, I was watching something as well. Somebody was, I thought you were telling me there was a safety concern there. No, I was watching something else. I missed that one, but we do get some good smoke rings out of these things. Union public opinion was no longer liking the war. And it got even worse after that, because the Confederacy, there'd be a battle and nobody would fight. The Confederacy was using this to advantage. When Ulysses S. Grant came into power, there, look, that's a good one. Still not dissipated, that one. Oh, now it's gone. Grant stopped messing about, and instead of doing this battle and then losing and sitting back for a little while, Grant just attacked and attacked and attacked. He lost thousands and thousands and thousands of men, but he didn't care. He just kept attacking and attacking and attacking. And even though he lost every battle on his way up the Potomac, he lost every one. He got to a point where they ran out of men and he didn't, and that was it, the war was over. So that's how this thing ends. So it's not pretty. Now you can see that as the war goes on, the soldiers also don't like doing things like standing up in front of the enemy. So one of the things they learn to do is what our sergeant here at the front is doing, which is to learn to load crouch down. He's a smaller target. He's making himself less accessible to be shot by those guys. Now some of the Union guys, they're not here today, I think there's one here today, begin to get breech-loading rifles. And when they arrive, they learn to lay down. In fact, he's going to, I think, actually fire his gun and then load laid down. Oh, and it looks like the Confederates have actually scored a hit on this regiment here. So the sergeant here is, I thought he was going to lay down and fire as much. Now here's our gentleman with the breech-loading rifle. See, he doesn't have to do this. He can actually just put the round right in the back of the gun. However, the Union Army didn't want to pay for this gun because it cost nearly $50, whereas those rifles were costing $13. And they also thought that if you made it so that the men could fire faster, they would just blitz through all their ammunition. And of course, this means also, just like our sharpshooter here is going to, when it works. Oh, misfire, double misfire. But he can actually load and fire laid down, and his rate of fire with practice can be up to 7 rounds a minute. You see, he can actually stay laid down and load and fire laid down, unlike this gentleman here, who's going to struggle to do so.
Amy, we've moved forward just so. Where's Ava?
No, it's in the
She's hiding.
Right. Her shoes are there.
Yeah.
And he's effectively proving much harder to hit laid down, but he's of course effectively proving why these rifles by the end of the war were so useful and why they were so much more effective. Of course, they were only owned by the Union. The Confederate couldn't produce such things, and if they did produce such things, they couldn't produce the ammunition for them. So only the Union had breech-loading rifles by the end of the war. The Confederacy was still fighting the war with the same weapons that it started the war.
He sits up. He's there. Right there.
Calling to the rally to the flag now.
Hello.
He's still alive.
So as the Confederacy now are pushing forward onto the Union position. The Union have taken casualties here.
Yeah, but if you notice, Union's still alive.
I know, no Confederates.
There's a few dead people on the field.
And like the good old-fashioned way of doing things, they went right back to square one instead of going on the modern skirmish line, and they went straight back to volley fire against. Oh, and actually they've got away with it. It looks.
Good morning, it is the 4th of August. I'm really ill, as you can tell. It's very rare that I get a cold that takes my voice, but there we go. Siri, I'm not talking to you wherever you are. Anyway.
Okay.
Thanks, Siri. I've just edited my video for today, and I've just realised literally it cuts the battle off where I believe the colour gets taken and Sergeant Golder runs to the back with the colour off the colour sergeant instead. That is literally what happens after this clip. However, I think just before this clip happens, there are a lot of kids running in front of the footage. I've skipped a lot of the footage. The video is only going to be, what, 12 minutes long? Because the battlefield footage is not good because people kept walking in front of the camera. I don't mind people walking in front of the camera. I was only about a metre from the barrier in front of me, so people could see the camera. It wasn't unobvious. It was on a big tripod. And quite a lot of people, when they saw it, moved out of the way and realised, whereas quite a lot of people also didn't. So some people just stood in front of it, kept looking back at it, but continued to stay in front of it. It was quite funny. Anyway, I've cut out all of the bits like that because it's unnecessary. You don't need to see people walking to and from the camera or getting up in front of the camera or looking at the camera or whatever they're doing. I've cut most of that out. So I've salvaged what I can. So I hope the video is going to be okay. And I'm going to add this at the end of the video. So I'm talking at the end of the video. I'm talking at the end of the video. Hope the video's alright. On to next week's, a bit more mumbo-jumbo of what was left from Worcester.